Hi everyone, so today we're going to be messing around with our San Francisco homepage. We're going to continue the tutorial that we were working on previously. This is what we've got so far. This is as viewed in Google Chrome. I've got some text here in a header area. I've got a list here. This is just an unordered list of text items. This is in my navbar area. I've then got an image of the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco, and then I've got a couple of text areas. I've got this text area here, which is going to be on the left side of my web page, and I've got another text area here, which is going to be on the right side of the web page. That's not set up at the moment. That's what we're going to be looking at in today's tutorial, how to set up and style your div areas in Dreamweaver. Okay. In fact, speaking of Dreamweaver, let's go and have a look. This is what we've got at the moment. We've got a bit of doctype HTML with an HTML tag. I've then got a head section here, which has a title, and this mystery line of code here, which we may understand as our experience of HTML and web design increases. I then start the body section, and I've got a div tag here called Big Box. And if we look in my split screen design area here, we can see how big Big Box is. It basically contains all of my content. I've then got a div ID here called header. There is the header. That blue box shows me everything that's in the header div. I've got a div ID called navbar. There it is. That's all of navbar. I can see exactly what navbar holds. And if I come down, I've got another div called Golden Gate, which holds my image. There it is, comes down to here. And after that, I've got my left side div, which holds all that stuff, and my right side div, which holds all this stuff. And at the very bottom, I do have a footer. And I can just, if I click on that line there, it shows me that this is the footer in my code. And if I hover, I can get some information about it. I can see that it's a div and the ID is footer. Okay? And if I come to the border, it'll tell me some information about margins and borders and padding and that kind of stuff. Okay? Do we get the same there if we hover around? Yeah, okay, so we get some information. Very interesting. Alright, so let's start styling. To start styling, we need to create, if you haven't already got one, a new CSS style sheet. And the first thing we're going to do is save it. I'm going to save it in my project folder. I've set up a subfolder called styles, and this is where I'm going to save all of my CSS style sheets. The first one you make, it's very common for designers to call this your main sheet, so I'm just going to call it main. Brilliant. Now just to test it, I'm going to style some H1. And let's go for color, and I'm going to set the color of any H1 tag to be light blue. Just finish that with a semicolon, and there we've got our first style element in our CSS style sheet, which is called main. Let's see if it worked, because in index.html I already set up my San Francisco text to use the H1 tag. But it's not blue! Hang on a minute, 0066FF is blue. So what happened? Well, one thing that I have to do after making my CSS style sheet is, in my HTML page, in my CSS style section, I need to attach the style sheet. So I'm just going to browse for it. There it is. That's the one that I made. OK. And just link it to your style sheet. Sorry, link the style sheet to your HTML page. Boom. And there you go, look. It works. Brilliant. Let's continue. Now the first thing that I'm going to be styling is this nasty looking list of links, and at the moment it doesn't really look like a navigation bar. So I'm just going to select that unordered list section And again, in my CSS styles area over here, I'm going to click on New CSS Rule. And look what happens. Dreamweaver automatically decides that we're going to be styling the unordered list tag, which is inside your navbar div, which is inside BigBox. Dreamweaver understands all of that, and it's going to let us style the unordered list which is in these divs. So let's do an OK on that. And what am I going to be styling? Well, the first thing I want to get rid of are these bullet points. So let's see if we can find the type. This is called type. It must be in list, mustn't it? List, type, none. And if you click apply, you'll kind of see what happens. Brilliant. That's gone. Now what I also want to do is make the unordered list, what do I want to do? I really want to push that so there's no margin here. Do you see that big gap? I don't want that gap. How can I get rid of that? Block, box margin. Same for all. Let's do 0 pixels for the margin. Is that going to solve that problem? No. It solved a little bit of it, but I've still got that gap on the left side. How can I get rid of that? Is that to do with padding? Let's make 0 pixels padding. Ooh, brilliant. We got it. So we no longer have that nasty gap between the edge of our navbar div and our list. So that's what I want to do with the unordered list. I'm going to say OK to that. Brilliant. If you go to main CSS, you will see that BigBox navbar's UL now has a little bit of styling. Brilliant. We're now going to style the list items. So I'm just going to select those list items and do that trick again with our magical little friend, New CSS Rule. And look what it does. This list item, which is in your navbar div, which is in BigBox, this is the list that we're going to be styling. Brilliant. Now what I want to do for this list, each list item, I want to give a width of, there are 4 items, so if each item has a width of 25%, let's apply that. Nothing happened. Don't panic. Each list item has a width of 25%, and each item floats to the left. Let's apply that. Yay, good. Check it out. We now have list items which are floating next to each other rather than having them on top of each other. Each item is 25% of the width of the content area that's holding it, which is navbar. So that's now 25%. Brilliant. Is there anything else we need to do? We need to align the text. Wow, I found it very quickly. That was lucky. Text align center. Let's just apply that and see what that looks like. There you go. We've now got text in the center of each 25% area, if that makes sense. I'm also going to give each list item a background color. Just going to make it light gray for the moment. There we go. Now do you see, I wouldn't mind having a bit of gap between the top and the bottom of the list item. So again, I'm going to go back to box. It's on the inside of kind of the list area. This is related to padding. So it's not going to be the same for all, but the top, I'm going to have a 10 pixel padding on the top and a 10 pixel padding on the bottom. Let's just apply that and see what that looks like. Wow, brilliant. So now we've got a little bit of a kind of a gap there, and this is starting to look like a navbar. Brilliant. And let's see what's happening in our main CSS file. All of that stuff is being added to our CSS file automatically. Dreamweaver will set that up for us. Now then, let's see what this would look like. Let's just save this. And let's go back to the Google Chrome view, and I'm just going to refresh. And it doesn't want to know. Why not? What have I done wrong? Can we save all? Let's do save all and refresh again. Yeah, that's what we're looking for. Now if I zoom in and out, is everything going to stay in the center of the screen? No, that's not what I want. Okay. Now remember, everything is in Big Box. So I'm going to go and find Big Box. There it is. There's Big Box. I've selected it. Now let's go to our CSS rule for Big Box. Brilliant. I'm going to give Big Box a width of about 800 pixels. I can change this later, no problem. And I'm going to give Big Box a margin setting of auto. Now can you remember, or do you know what that does? So Big Box has been styled with a width of 800 pixels and a margin of auto. Now this is magic. Let's go back to File, Save All, and I'm going to go back to Google Chrome and just refresh this. Now what we can see is now, when I zoom in and out, everything stays in the center of the screen, because Big Box is now 800 pixels wide, and those auto margins will keep it in the center of the web page browser window. Don't worry that the image is still way too wide. We'll fix that as we go along. Okay, so back to Dreamweaver. What I need to do is find my left side div and give this some styling as well. So left side, styling. I'm going to give this a width of 40% of, now let's say 60% of its area. We'll have a look at this in a moment. And it's going to float left. And I'm going to do the same for the right side. Select the right side area and new CSS rule, make sure it's right side. Now I gave the left side 40% of the width, 60%, sorry, so I'm going to give right side 40%. And it's also going to be floating on the left side. Apply. Let's see what happens. Bingo! Check it out! I've now got a situation where two content areas are floating next to each other. So if we go to File, Save All, we're going to save the index and the main CSS file. So File, Save All does that for you. Let's go and have a look and see what this looks like in our bingo! Brilliant! Okay, so we've now got things that are floating. Before this video ends, I'm just going to try something and see if I can make this image fit within the div that I created for it. Do you remember div was Golden Gate? Let's go to that Golden Gate div. Div ID Golden Gate. That image. I'm going to click on the image and then do that new CSS. I'm just playing, by the way. I don't know if this is going to work. But this image, which is in the Golden Gate div, which is in Big Box, I'm going to create a style for that. I'm going to say, you, mister, have a width of 100%. Let's have a look at that. Look what that does. That fits the image into a 100% wide setting for the div that it's in. I don't know how much that makes sense. Have a think about it. File, Save All, back to Chrome, refresh, bingo! That image is now set to 100% wide and it's beautiful.